Hello everyone and welcome back to my video series on the Starship Troopers Terran Command Scenario Editor. Today we're going to be talking about a much requested item, which is how to add briefings to your missions and how to add voice lines, custom voice lines to your missions. So let's get into it. To start, I'm going to talk about the briefing. The briefing effect is really versatile in what it can do. And I'll go ahead and talk about that in just a moment. Now that I have my briefing trigger, I'm going to go ahead and find the effect called Briefing Add. So what you will notice here is a default line of text that gets added whenever you're adding a briefing to your mission. So what this is this is referable inside of the text file for specific languages within the actual scenario folder. So what you could, in theory, do is use this feature here to call for certain CSV fields, JSON fields, so that way you don't have to do anything inside the editor. You can do it inside of the JSON tool. This is very cool if you wanted to add some HTML elements to it. But to keep things super simple, we're just going to be using the in-game text box here. So for my needs, I'm going to type in something super simple, and I'm going to say reinforcements incoming. All right, now that I have my briefing, now we have some camera control options here built into the briefing add. Optionally, you could pair this with the effect called camera focus, but for this video right now, we're going to be focusing on using all the tools available inside of the actual briefing effect. So what I can do is I can go ahead and select a location that I want the camera to focus to. Now, what I can do is I can use the camera zoom so I can really zoom in on the action. Or I recommend leaving it to -1 if you want just whatever the player has set to be the zoom level for that briefing. So you can alternatively select a unit if you want it to focus on a specific unit. So for now, I'm just going to go ahead and pick a location right on top of that unit there. The option that we have here is instantly reposition the camera. What this does is it would allow you to snap the camera to a position rather than scrolling over to the location or unit. So, oh, there we go. All right. So because for this particular scenario, I want it to actually scroll or move over to the actual position, I'm going to leave this unchecked. Now we have some portrait icons here. We have Hawthorne, Ava as an advisor, Ava Cortez as a on-the-grounds liaison. We have Victor Yarrow. We have the propagandist, and what this is that FedNet logo. We have Hidden Hawthorne. What this is this is a static screen, kind of distorted vision type of, distorted TV type of effect. And then we have Soldier A. Soldier A has no portrait associated to it. So this allows you to just have some voice lines pop up from a generic soldier. And then we have Hawthorne Private. So this is Hawthorne in a private's uniform. All right. So next we have some speed options. So if you would like to pause the game during the actual briefing for some sort of effect that you're accomplishing, you would use paused. If you want to slow-mo, kind of when we played that very first mission and it's slow mode during the actual tactical bomber run. So that's the use for that. And then we have normal, where the game is running at full speed during the actual particular briefing that you have here. Now, canceled all queued briefing pages. I have not had any experience with this particular toggle here, so your mileage may vary. What I have had experience with, and what have a lot of players been asking for, is how to get a cinematic look where the UI disappears and it is just a cinematic. So that can be accomplished with the disable user input, the black bars. So what this will do is when the briefing starts, black bars will creep in from the top and the bottom of the screen, and then once those are fully rendered, the briefing will start. Now, because user input is disabled, you have the option to make the briefing skippable or unskippable. So if you uncheck this, it will be an unskippable cutscene. And if you check this, the player will have the option to press the escape key to skip the cutscene. Keep in mind, some triggers may run awry if they're not built correctly for it. So keeping that in mind. Now, reset camera. Let's say it's in the middle of the mission and the player was over here attacking some units. And in fact, speaking of units from my previous live stream, I had left some units there. So now continuing on, let's say the player was over here clearing this objective, and when they clear the objective, you want the camera to scroll over here for a cutscene, and then at the end of the cutscene, you want it to reset back to the last player inputted camera move. So that's what that option is. Duration. Duration, if it is set to 0, is just a voiceover. Think of those moments where Ava and Victor Yarrow were throwing shade at each other in one of the missions, but there weren't any text box popping up or anything. That's what this purpose would be for, and in that purpose you would just leave the text box blank. Now, if you want voiceovers with text and portrait icons, you would want to set a duration here and make sure there's text in the text box. Now, the question all of you have been probably wondering, how do I add voices to my scenario? To do that, you're going to need primarily one or two things. So, to do that, we're actually going to go ahead and swap over to my desktop. So, welcome to my desktop. So the first thing that we're going to need some sort of audio software for recording or transforming some audio for our purposes here. Now, my preferred software, and just one that I've used quite regularly, is Audacity. Audacity is a great free audio program. You use whatever you feel comfortable using. So, now for Audacity in particular, this is where I can import existing MP3 files, waves, whatever. Have it, say you have a voice actor, you have some friends who are sending you files. Now, you can record your own files, such as reinforcements incoming. Now, I'm going to show you a quick trick. If I were to play this, you might hear some background noise.
Reinforcements incoming.
I'm going to show you a really quick tip, and there's a reason why I left all this blank space here. With Audacity, and this will vary between the different tools that you use, so I'm going to talk specifically about Audacity. What you can do is you can isolate an area that you have chosen to be your white noise, where your microphone is just going to pick up the area around you with no voices, no anything. It's just a background hum. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into Effects, Noise Reduction, and now that I have an area highlighted, I'm going to get a noise profile for that area. And now that I have a noise profile, I'm going to select my whole clip and select noise reduction again. And then we can see after it is applied and processed, this is a very short clip, we can see the difference or hear the difference.
Reinforcements incoming.
There's no longer that background hum. And in fact, we can go a little further and do one final pass if we really wanted to do it, but it can cause distortion.
Reinforcements incoming.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and trim this off. So we see this is about a 1.5 second clip. So over inside, and in fact, I'm going to go ahead and slide this forward just a little bit, just so there's a little breathing room at the beginning. And then we're inside of Terran Command, we're actually going to use a duration of 2 seconds just to make sure that we have enough time to hear and digest the message. So I'm going to go ahead and export this as you can do either MP3, WAV, or OGG. I prefer WAV for this. And then what you're going to do is you're going to go find your scenarios folder, which is found in Documents, My Games, Starship Troopers, and Scenarios. So right now I have the mission Attack Waves Tutorial. So this is going to be where I save my file. So I'm going to call this one Reinforcement. And then I'm going to go ahead and click Save. Now that I have it saved in my file, and we can go ahead and verify that, we can see I have it here. Now we're going to hop back into Terran Command now that we have our sound file here. So back in Terran Command, we are going to make sure that the duration is long enough. Now I know I said earlier I was going to do 2 seconds. I'm going to do 3 seconds. And I'm not going to have any black bars. It's just going to essentially be you get to move around and do stuff while the cinematic is happening. So we've got custom voiceover file name. So to the right of this field is an invisible field. Unfortunately, it's a little crazy right now, but to the right of there is an invisible field. And what a lot of people kind of get confused about is when it's mentioned the file name without the extension. So I'm going to show you what that means. So I'm going to type in reinforcement. And then what a lot of people do is they type in .wave or .mp3 or .ogg. Now what you want to do is you want to leave the extension off and just use the file name itself. Now keep in mind, with any file name that you add to your scenario, it cannot include any spaces. The system does not support anything like that, so you have to use no spaces. You can do reinforcement underscore incoming, just for an example, but there cannot be any spaces in the file name. Now, the very last thing I'm going to cover here with the briefing ad effect is this section down here. We have here 2 sections here. This is very cool because what you can do is you can have a briefing enable triggers. So rather than using the enable trigger or enable folder effects, you can enable those triggers and effects at the end of the briefing. So this top section is triggers and this bottom section is folders. So now what I'm going to do to really highlight that camera effect that we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add a small delay here, and I'm going to use a camera focus effect. And I'm going to start the camera off right here instantly at the start of the mission. So let's go see how well we did. Now, I did actually do that on purpose. So a lot of times people run into the problem, I put in my audio file and it didn't play. That's because whenever you click play without saving first, you actually load up the temp folder, which the temp folder does not have your sound file. so it doesn't know where to pull or the reinforcement sound effect. So I'm going to go ahead and save really quick and then launch.
Reinforcements incoming.
All right, everyone. That is how you add briefings and a little bit of camera movement to your missions. So I hope this was helpful, and I will catch you all in the next video.